You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. It's Monday, October 10th. Today is Indigenous Peoples Day, Columbus Day, International Stage Management Day, National Metric Day, not from Cannabis Metric, but actual metric system, National Walk to a Park Day, World Homeless Day, World Porridge Day, shout out to the Three Bears, and World Mental Health Day, National Handbag Day, National Cake Decorating Day, and finally, National Angel Food Cake Day. Thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on YouTube, as well as all of our other social media platforms. We're live every Monday through Friday on YouTube and audio only on Clubhouse. And if you are joining us in Clubhouse, you can also participate in the show by raising your hand if you have a brief comment on the story most recently presented. But without further ado, let's pay a quick bill so we can get right into the news.
At True Classic OG, we live by one motto: stay true. We stay true to our legacy cut of True OG that's always fresh, piney, gassy, and delicious. We represent the spirit, hustle, and diversity of our great city of Angels. And we stay true to the spirit of this plant, doing everything in-house to ensure that you get the highest quality and consistency with every batch. And that's what's made us LA's favorite OG. True Classic OG. Stay true, Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That is right. It's Monday, everybody. Coming up first, it is the dope dad himself, Rico Lamitte. When he's not chasing around kids, because he can't chase around kids because he tripped over safe banking comments and hurt his Achilles tendon, he has to sit around and watch just kids actually babysit him all day. And you can also find him doing the same thing at TEDx conventions when he's sitting around watching grown-ass adults babysit themselves as well. Oh, yeah. That's right. Coming up next is none other than the dope dad himself, Rico Lamitte.
Thank you for yet another amazing intro, Jason. And to everyone out there checking in with us live, I got two words for all of you. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. My headline today is from MJ Moment by Kyle Yeager. GOP congressman urged Biden to protect tribal marijuana programs as he orders federal cannabis review. Republican co-chairs of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, Representatives Dave Joyce of Ohio and Brian Mast of Florida, sent a letter to President Joe Biden Friday seeking administrative cannabis policy action for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, or the BIA, calling him to promptly address discriminatory federal marijuana enforcement issues in tribal territories and to direct relevant agencies to prioritize more serious crimes like human trafficking and respect tribal sovereignty instead of going after cannabis. Maybe my conservative teammates here can help me out as to what Joyce and Mast's stances are on CRT, because I'm pretty sure acknowledging indigenous people's genocide and even fighting for their sovereign rights as a result of what happened in the past falls squarely into that quote unquote woke category, and Republicans are asking for this. Seems kind of odd, but I'm finished. The congressmen say that they want to raise attention to the issue in light of Biden's proclamation last week pardoning people who've committed federal possession offenses and his directive for an administrative review of cannabis scheduling. The request was made in lieu of BIA's enforcement action that we actually highlighted from last year when federal agents raided the garden of a New Mexican member of the Pueblo of Picuras, destroying 9 plants grown for personal therapeutic use in compliance with state and tribal law. Per the article, the man filed a claim indicating intention to file a lawsuit seeking $3.5 million in damages from the U.S. federal government and over what he and others view as a double standard of racially discriminatory cannabis criminalization. The raid was strongly condemned by the Pueblo of Picuras government, Craig Quancello, who also says that he felt the action constituted in racial discrimination. At a congressional hearing in April, Joyce separately raised the tribal cannabis issue with Interior Secretary Deb Haaland and pressed on the agency's enforcement policy at a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee hearing in July. And back in June, the Senate committee held a listening session to broadly address marijuana issues for Indian tribes, discussing relevant legislation and the importance of tribal sovereignty with respect to cannabis, where several witnesses stressed the need to have a more comprehensive end to federal prohibition to uplift tribal markets. The letter discussed that the Justice Department needs to respect the inherent sovereignty of tribal governments and cease the enforcement of Controlled Substances Act on tribal land as it pertains to the growth, possession, and use of cannabis for medicinal, agricultural, and recreational purposes, where those tribes have legalized this activity for its known members and those acting in compliance with tribal law. It should also be noted that the Obama era Department of Justice guidance on prosecutorial discretion for tribal governments opting to legalize cannabis did just that. It was known as the Wilkinson Memo, but it was rescinded by then Attorney General Jeff Sessions in 2018, along with a separate memo urging prosecutors not to go after states that establish regulated cannabis markets. The senators urged the Attorney General to reinstate prosecutorial discretion and allow U.S. attorneys to deprioritize cannabis enforcement where states and tribes have legalized cannabis. The Sessions Committee did not respond to anything back then. Well, I'm all for the action being taken by Joyce and Mast. I just gotta like point to the fact that it is super hypocritical given their stance on CRT and like all that other stuff. Like, should we be looking to the Republicans to help us on this stuff, or are we going to be fighting back against them? I don't know. This is why I'm asking Gretchen and Jason Beck, what are you guys saying and what do you guys really mean? Please explain the rest to us. This is Rico Lamitte, dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News. I'd like to hear from the rest of the team. What do you guys think?
What are you referring to when you say they're being hypocritical?
Exactly.
CRT, man. This is CRT. This goes
Can I
directly
get an
to
actual-
CRT,
man.
CRT has nothing to do with this, though.
What
How
are you
does it
talking
not?
about?
How does it not?
I'm
How
asking
does
you
it?
how.
Describe the exact hypocrisy. Like if I was a
Yeah,
third
did
grader,
Dave Joyce
if I was
say
a third
something?
grader and you were
Okay,
explaining this to
what
me.
is the meaning of CRT, Jason? Please.
That's not the question. The question is,
What is it?
what?
What is it?
No. My question was first.
If
What
you want to
are
erase,
you
if you want to,
I can defend Dave Joyce and Brian Massa, no problem. My
Yes,
question
those
is,
are my guys.
what what is your problem
Okay.
with Joyce and Massa? What they
No,
say?
I don't have a problem. I'm asking what
I'm
are
asking, are
if
you
they're
trying to
saying
lump them
something?
in with every other fuckhead who decided to talk about CRT? I'm
I asked
asking,
you
did they
I
say
asked you
something?
specifically what is their stance? What are these two gentlemen's stance on CRT? Because if they are
Why does that
against
matter?
hold on, if they are against CRT, what's the point of them even putting forward this
So you
gripe?
have
But
no
This
That
understanding
doesn't, you're
of
conflating
I-
two issues,
on
Rico. That doesn't
CRT.
even make
I'm not
sense.
though.
Yes,
no,
you
no,
are.
I'm
not.
asking.
Yeah.
I'm asking a question like totally in the middle, right? What exactly are you saying is the hypocrisy? Because like
That's all I want to know.
I
What
want
is
to
the what is the
describe it to
hypocrisy?
me like I'm a fucking idiot because right now I
If
feel like an idiot because I don't fully
absolutely.
understand.
Absolutely. The hypocrisy here is conservatives leading the charge on this particular issue when this would go directly against them leading the charge against CRT, because CRT would actually raise issues like this of indigenous peoples, of all Black, brown, and indigenous peoples, and try to bring those into light in modern day systemic racism, which the genocide would have to be brought up as such. Correct?
Okay.
Yes.
First off, I think
So
you're out of your gourd.
no, not really.
Conflating.
That
Just
really.
hold on,
Come
Rico.
on with it.
I'm
You
with
are-
Gretchen on this one.
Come on with
You've
it.
decided to lump these two congressmen in, not having any idea what their actual stances are.
That's
I
why
would
I asked
say
you what
that-
their stances are. What are their
How the
stances?
fuck would I know? Because they haven't said anything for them to be hypocritical about. I don't
See,
know
I
of
love
Joyce
how
getting into the CRT debate. I'm sorry, I don't. My answer to
I
why
love-
they care about this particular issue is because I look at it as more of a states' rights, keeping government out of my backyard. Let the fucking tribes do what they want to do. That's what they're doing.
Exactly.
Okay,
This
and
has nothing to do with
the
CRT.
same
And you want
Republicans
to
are
bring
going
in some
Exactly.
fun
It has
little
nothing to do
bakers
with
to fucking get the morning
CRT.
going. Well, you want to do
Exactly.
it. Let's
This has
do this.
everything to do with CRT. This is
I remember when
everything to do with
CRT
it.
only standed
This
for
is-
court.
Okay, so can I just jump in for a second?
Yes,
Yes,
Please,
please,
Dr.
Dr.
Felicia.
You know,
Please bring some
see-
sanity to the discussion.
Well, CRT is not even taught to children. It's a law school situation, you know. But Republicans have projected it onto kids, and everybody else is saying teach kids an accurate history. They're not saying teach them CRT. They just said teach them history as it happened. In terms of the hypocrisy, the Republicans are making a good point to President Biden about this issue. It is hypocritical for us to, disregard indigenous people's rights when we've made over 300 treaties with them, and we choose to disregard them whenever we feel like it. I mean, they're bringing that. That's what they're bringing up. Apparently, I know that Jason said at some point that they're supposed to have sovereignty over their lands, but apparently
Exactly.
that right was revoked apparently in 1970s, to my understanding. I'm not
Yes.
up 100% on that, but someone revoked that right and allows our government to meddle in their business anytime they want to. I understand what you're trying to say with the hypocrisy also, Rico, because you have our Herschel Walker who's supposed to be pro-life, and nobody's seeming to think that's wrong on that side. You have the former president talking about Mitch McConnell's wife. No one seems to be able to stand up and say that's not right to speak racial epithets about his wife. So that's where that hypocrisy is coming in at.
I just want the real Republicans to stand up and tell us what you really think. In something, give us something that's not tied to your pet projects.
Will the real Republicans
I cannot
stand up?
I cannot
Please.
believe that you're trying to tie these two things together, Rico.
How are they not tied together, dude? Like
they're not tied. They're not tied together at all.
They're trying
CRT,
to no, hold on.
CRT is a flawed educational scheme that came up in a bunch of liberals in a think tank,
Bullshit.
and they're just trying to spew across the country.
Segue this one because this is going down a deep dark rabbit hole that we don't have the emotional security or the ability to give people the therapy needed to recover from where this story will go.
You want to take out Martin Luther King. You want to take Martin Luther King out of the history books, but you want to also.
I've never said that. I'm all about keeping Martin Luther King in the history books. That's stupid. That's part of history.
We're going on to our next
CRT,
speaker.
Jason Beck, pro-CRT.
Well, the real Republican, please stand up, Mr. Jason Beck.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Also known as the longest running retailer in the history of regulated cannabis in the world. Well, I'd say probably in the globe. Also the member of whatever political party might piss you off. I heard that it's Republican. I heard that it's Republican today, which is very, very fitting for his story and his futures in political world. So, Jason, what do you have for us today?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for that, Nicole. Today, my story, and Gretchen, I think you owe me $100 from our bet because of my story.
I can't wait.
Oh,
Can't wait. Let's go.
Yes. North Carolina governor pushes to legalize marijuana possession after Biden pardons end this stigma. Democratic North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper said his attorney general are pushing the GOP-led state legislature to decriminalize possession of small amounts of marijuana following President Biden's recent pardon of thousands who were convicted for the same offense under federal law. Conviction for simple possession can mar people's records for life and maybe even prevent them from getting a job, Cooper told a Friday task force meeting on racial equality and criminal justice. The General Assembly didn't pass your recommendation on this last session, but I believe they should. North Carolina should take steps to end this stigma. The governor established the task force in June 2020 amid the riots that took place nationwide in the wake of George Floyd's death. The 24-member panel of law enforcement officers, attorneys, civil rights advocates, and state officials recommended in their 2020 report that North Carolina state legislators replace the misdemeanor charge for possession of up to 1.5 ounces of marijuana with a civil offense akin to a traffic infraction. The Republican-controlled North Carolina General Assembly did not act on the task force recommendation, and under current North Carolina law, possession of more than 1/2 ounce is punishable by up to 45 days in jail and up to $1,000 in fines, without exemptions for medical use. Possessions of more than 1.5 ounces is classified as a felony. North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein echoed the governor's position, saying people should not have a federal criminal record for something that is legal in an increasing number of states. Stein said last Thursday, "Let's act and let's get it right. That means decriminalizing adult use, expunging past convictions for simple possession, and including strong protections for kids, not advertising state-controlled sales, and putting North Carolina farmers first." Cooper, who cannot seek re-election in 2024 because of term limits, also said he has asked lawyers to examine state law to determine if North Carolina can and should take further action to pardon such marijuana-based convictions. The North Carolina state constitution provides the governor near absolute pardoning power. Following his pardon last week of thousands of Americans who faced federal marijuana possession charges, Biden called on governors to issue similar pardons for those convicted of state marijuana offenses, which comprise mostly possession cases. He acknowledged that the drug charges disproportionately affect people of color, and as I often during my campaign for president, no one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana, Biden said. Sending people to prison for possessing marijuana has upended too many lives and incarcerated people for conduct that many states no longer prohibit. Well, I'll tell you what, this is the first. I told you it was going to happen, and I thought it was going to be Gavin Newsom first, but unfortunately, it was a governor that cannot seek re-election doing it first. What do you guys think? This is Jason Beck reporting for High at 9 News.
Okay, number one, Jason, this governor did nothing. This is not what we discussed in our bet. In our bet, I said that no governor was going to do mass pardons. This man has not done mass pardons.
He's getting ready to. He's preparing for it. He's preparing for it. He's having his attorney general do it. He's definitely going to do this during the lame duck just to pardon.
You're crazy and you're wrong.
No way. Like, wasn't Gavin the one that you said was going to do it though? Like,
I did. I said I predict Gavin to be the first one to come out and do something like this, and I said I was wrong about that prediction because obviously this North Carolina governor that's being termed out is the first one on the ball.
Oh, how easy for this man who's being termed out.
Exactly. That's my whole point, Gretchen. That's part of my whole point.
He's not. Well, if he cared, he would be doing a mass pardon. He's not doing that.
He directed the attorney general to look into it, and
yeah, Joe Biden tells me to look into stuff every day. Has he done a damn thing? No.
Do you guys think that this is going to actually happen in North Carolina? How about that? Let's talk about that.
No.
She doesn't think it's going to happen.
I feel like it has a higher chance of actually happening in California. Like, still, even though this guy's the first one to talk about it, I still think we have a higher chance of Newsom showing up, in the back of the line, just showing up, popping up, and passing this up.
We have Nicole Buffong up from Clubhouse. Nicole, do you have a brief comment on this?
Is North Carolina even going to stay blue after these elections?
North Carolina is a red state.
Gotta love that Carolina blue, though.
I just wanted to add that the governor of Nevada pardoned thousands of people with cannabis convictions 2 years ago. Granted, there were additional steps that you had to make in order to complete that pardon, but he did do that about 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, see, I told you.
No, you can't take credit for something that happened 2 years ago.
I wasn't trying to take credit. That was just a whole nother discussion that we were having on Friday when you said that no other governors have done this. And I said, yeah, there's been tons of other governors that have done this already.
No, I said no other governor has done a mass pardon for possession. And you know that's the truth. People have expunged records, or at least started the process of expunging records, but nobody is out there mass pardoning marijuana convictions at the state level.
Mass pardons.
There's a difference.
Semantics.
I agree with Gretchen on this.
Semantics.
Words matter. What are you
Words
talking
matter
about?
a lot. And if you're not using them correctly, people are doing different things. And that's the fucking worst and the best part about having two groups that are literally so different in the way that they speak. I will watch conservatives and liberals argue about completely different things using the same words because words matter and we're not using them correctly.
Yeah, they do.
Oh,
yeah, they do. Speaking of which,
words matter.
As a felon,
words matter.
Yeah.
As a felon, words matter. As a felon, this agriculture and efficiency expert did time in a Colorado cell learning the hard lessons our industry needs to collectively climb higher. Emerging as a superhero known to fellow inmates is Jail Google, dedicating her life to paying that knowledge forward so you never end up in the same motherfucking place. Up next is this self-described general data bitch herself, Nicole West. What you got for us? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone's out there just fucking getting it today because it is quite a hot Monday. And I'm going to bring some news today that I'm going to start with saying, well, I told you this shit was going to happen when the SEC charges 8 in cannabis stock promotion scheme. My headline today is coming out of the Fresh Toast, and it's also a headline that is also in the Green Market Report as well. So this is amazing. Elegance Brand, Emerald Health Pharmaceuticals, and High Times are the companies that the stocks are included in this stock promotion scheme. The Securities Exchange Commission announced on September 30th that it had charged a stock promotion scheme that included promoting Emerald Health Pharmaceuticals and High Times Holding stocks. The SEC says investors purchased over $80 million of security following the promotions. The individuals received payments based on the number of securities sold. Well, in case anyone is curious about that, it is completely illegal to sell something based on a percentage without completely disclosing that and or being an owner in that company. And that is neither the case for this specific group. The SEC's announcement attached the legal complaint that alleged securities law violator Jonathan William McCullough promoted the securities of 4 issuers of Elegance Brands, Emerald Health Pharmaceuticals, High Times Holding Corp., and Cloud Structure Inc., without disclosing that he had received compensations for the promotions. McCullough is alleged to have promoted the securities through Palm Beach Venture, a newsletter for which he served as an author and the chief analyst, and presented the recommendations as unbiased and not paid for, while he was secretly compensated for all the cash and lavish expenses for these ads and sales. In addition, McCullough, the SEC's complaint also charged Christian Fernandez and Amit Rajbari, associates of McCullough's, who allegedly acted as middlemen for the promotional scheme. The gentleman earned millions of dollars of the promotions, but hid the payments by submitting fake invoices for consulting services. Barry, in particular, acted as a middleman for cannabis companies Emerald Health and High Times. High Times was not charged. Elegance Brands, Barry also was listed as the CEO and CFO for various SEC filings. The company called Elegance Brands, which produced a product called Gorilla Hemp, which I've never heard of. Elegance was approved by the SEC for a Reg A offering, but 9 months after it had only raised a little over $1 million, which is a really sad Reg A raise, in case anyone's curious. When it decided to promote the Elegance through the Palm Beach Ventures newsletter, newsletter, Berry made changes to the offering but did not prepare a new offering statement with the SEC. Thus, any securities sold after that point were considered unregistered. The complaint stated, at Makula's urging and in order to facilitate the promotion, Elegance agreed to engage in individual one, this person, an associate of Makula's, and pay him 3% of investor funds raised through the promotion to provide him with 8.9 million in shares. The Elegance stocks, which amounted to 10% of the company's outstanding stock. The complaint said that the newsletter published an article stating that Gorilla Hemp was retailing for $3.95 a can, and that Gorilla Hemp could yield Elegance a 2,630% price increase. I can't even imagine that as a reality. The Elegance had distributed an agreement in place for Gorilla Hemp with the largest adult beverage distributor in the United States. The Elegance shared was projected to increase by 9,900% over 5 years. Emerald Health was alleged to have made $30 million in stock promotion in the campaign and consisted of promotional articles in the newsletter. Emerald Health CEO James Damassa is accused of participating in the scheme and allegedly made material misrepresentations and omissions in the filings with the SEC and other investor materials concerning the promotional related payments. According to the complaint, Emerald Health's co-founder Avtar Dahalan played a key role in the scheme to promote Emerald Health. A separate administrative proceeding against Emerald Health CFO Lisa Sanford finds she negligently participated in the scheme as well. Now, last but certainly not least on this list is High Times. High Times was promoted by Palm Beach Ventures between April 2020 and March 2021. The complaint stated that High Times ultimately entered into an agreement to pay Entity One, a Canadian entity controlled by Individual Two, a 5% commission of the funds raised through the Palm Beach promotion. Berry, Individual Two, and Fernandez and Makula all agreed that they would all receive a share of the monies that Entity One received from High Times. The purpose using the Canadian entity in an offshore account was to conceal the payments from High Times that would go to Makula. High Times paid $150,000 for the promotion, but the complaint did not state the number of securities sold through the promotion. However, if High Times agreed to pay 5% of the securities sold and then paid the individual $150,000, it could be deduced that at least $3 million was raised through this promotion. High Times did not respond for requests for comment. On Friday, High Times filed a report with the SEC stating that the independent auditor, RBMS LLP, on July 18, 2022, declined to stand for reappointment other than to complete the audit for the 2019 financial statements, and that the filing for the company's annual report on Form K1K for the year's end on December 31st, which I think that's kind of crazy, 2019. So I'm going to read this sentence again. On Friday, High Times filed a report with the SEC stating that its independent auditor on July 18, 2022, declined to stand for reappointment other than to complete the audit for the 2019 statements of the filing for the company's annual 1K reports. So this is a person who did that, filed those reports, but refuses to come back. So that is a very telltale sign when you start to consider what that actually looks like. The company also has to extend its Reg A offering to January 2023. The offering, however, is paused until the company can file an audited update on financials. The offering was stopped in June of 2020, but it was July of 2020 when the Cannabis Law Report confirmed that High Times Holding Corp. Lawyer Stephanie Weiss and Megan Pennick of the LA-based Michelin Robinson LLP that the Securities and Exchange Commission has halted the sales of the company. Lawyer Megan Pennick told Cannabis Law Report she wasn't aware that the company was continuing to solicit for investment, even though the website told them that it had completely stopped, but the website did remain live. In addition, the press release for the company continually reminded readers that the offering deadline has been extended. And I don't know, I went to my email box and I was like, I remember getting blown up with these emails. And so I wanted to see when was the last time I got an email telling me to buy High Times stock. And the one that I got was in August of 2020, which is 2 months after this was supposed to stop. So I will say for sure, as somebody who has experienced it, it was definitely still being promoted after the government had told them to stop. So with that said, the main issue, according to Bull, wasn't the company's promotional activity, but whether the company's escrow agent Prime Trust processed any sales after June 12th, which was the cutoff Now, if no sales were actually processed after June 12th, then there was no securities violation and advertising isn't an issue. Yet the SEC says in its complaint to the Palm Beach Ventures promotion that went into late March of 2021 that they are unsure. So I am super interested to see how this shakes out. Right now, High Times is of these three companies the only one that is not actually being charged individually. They're people. So these groups of people that were actually selling the securities are the ones that are being come after. There's a couple groups that specified or worked specifically on that sort of stuff. And then there was a couple people that were lawyers and kind of middlemen in the whole situation. And everyone's getting caught up in this securities exchange issue. And I am super curious to hear what everyone else has to say. And when was the last time any of you guys got an email from High Times telling you to buy some stock? And I'm Nicole West, getting high at 9 with y'all.
For a stock that hasn't even been released yet. I mean, Rico and Nicole, I have a question for both of you in regards to this. Is it that High Times isn't being prosecuted now? And could it be that they could get prosecuted later once they release that once this accountant finishes this job that he's saying is going to be his last job?
You never know. Like there's the statute of limitations is really the end of the day for them. You know what I mean? Like it could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be in 2 years. I'm honestly surprised that this didn't happen sooner with the way that the cannabis industry, not just High Times, but the way the cannabis industry has been playing the fucking securities market, not thinking that people are paying attention. Like, I think people got so comfortable with the way crypto works, right? Like, I think a lot of people that are under 40 years old, I think there's a misconception of what the SEC can do and how quickly it can crawl up your ass and eat your fucking lunch. And I think that's because the way that the crypto world has kind of distorted people's views of exchange. And I'm blown away that they didn't think this was gonna happen.
And SEC lawyers are gnarly. Okay, those are gnarly ass lawyers. Yeah,
this whole thing. Anybody who has any kind of financial background, whether you've been in the industry or whether you have played the markets in the past, like you've been watching this whole like high time charade like play out, like this is bound to happen. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. The fact that they're buying everything in stock and people in the industry, we still hold like. We put High Times on a pedestal that they probably should not be because of nostalgia. We should be putting them on a pedestal because of their books or
their magazine
of books.
Like and publications.
Not a good bet.
You know what I mean? Like a hand like that. Yeah. They've been better than most magazines as far as sales and all of that. Like they're fucking amazing culturally, but in the way of like stocks and business and all this other shit. Hubris, well, you're absolutely right.
It's the hubris, and my personal take is they should have let all outside people outside of the cannabis industry take control like early on of their offering, and we wouldn't be in this mess that we are right now. But instead, like I said, there's like a lot of hubris like tied to the brand.
What's a hubris?
What's hubris? Inflated sense of one's self.
Got it.
Right. And so like if that was handled like outside of their executive rooms or whatever, I think we'd be in a better place than we are right now. But instead, you have a bunch of people really tethering themselves to the nostalgia rather than like looking at these books or the lack thereof and be like, oh, is this a good financial decision for me to put money behind this company? Is this a good financial decision for me to take stock or accept stock from this entity to buy whatever I have? Because your stock is nothing. There was no stock.
The idea that they kept extending it, I would get so annoyed when I would get that email. Like I was like, fucking stop emailing me. They're like 30 more days. You know, like the email would be like, you haven't gotten your stock yet? Do it now. You know,
we just extended our initial offering.
Like, and it's $4.
Yeah.
Like,
this time it's no longer $420. It's now $4.20. Get in now.
Man. What is wrong with you?
It's like that guy that spent $500,000 on an NFT and it's only worth $10 now.
A Paul brother, isn't that a Paul brother? What's that? Logan? Is that
Logan
right?
Paul?
Yeah.
I mean, he made enough money scamming off all these motherfuckers that pay for his pay-per-view anyways. So like, who cares about the NFT? He already made like $20 million off of people like actually paying real dollars for his pay-per-view. So in that situation, man, like whatever. A fool and his money are soon parted, and unfortunately, I'm not really calling all you guys fools for buying that high time stock, but I kind of am.
Oh, thank you. That's really got to move.
All right, let's keep it rocking. What we got? Halftime?
I don't know what just happened in here, but my board won't play a sound, so we're going to a commercial real quick. Yes. Welcome to Los Ashes, the headiest city in America. Los Ashes is a 10-pound smokable city curated and created by the world-renowned roller Weavers. In the past, Weavers has amazed cannabis lovers with his roll jobs, such as a smokable 5-pound rocket launcher and a 10-pound Darth Vader. But now Weavers is rolling an entire city. Have your business featured in Los Ashes with a ton of different sponsorship opportunities available, and contact Weavers at smokablecity.com for full sponsorship information. Do-do-do-do.
The thoughts and opinions and general shade thrown on the High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers, not those of any other speaker or its followers. The statements made do not constitute legal or accounting advice, and our speakers make no representation regarding the legal status of any substance in any country, territory, area, or its authorities. These expressed in this room do not establish fiduciary relationships. Our sponsors do not imply, constitute the endorsement by us or the expression of any opinion whatsoever, any person or any speaker on stage. If you're an easily offended person, this show is probably not for you. Also, smoke more weed.
Oh, yeah. Flying into LAX and you want to taste some of the best weed in the world? Then stop by LAXCC, the closest dispensary to LAX. Located at 8332 Lincoln Boulevard and open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Always make LAXCC your first stop when you touch down in LA and score like a winner. And don't forget to tell them I sent you and mention you like to get high at 9 for 10% off your full order. Do-do-do-do.
Do-do-do-do-do-do. Our next correspondent is well known in certain DC circles for cooking up excellent and baking delicious treats. But don't let the apron fool you. She's a full-time feisty redheaded conservative with proven long-form Mayflower roots and highly questionable love for safe banking. Also, a spotty memory of when it comes to what CRT really means. Coming to the stage next, it's the founder of Panoptic Strategies and our very own Washington insider herself, Gretchen Gailey. What you got for us on this Medical Monday?
Good afternoon, Rico. My headline is coming from Marijuana Moment. Biden health secretary has already talked to FDA about marijuana scheduling review, which will move quickly. U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra said in Tampa on Friday that he intends for his agency to move as quickly as we can to comply with President Joe Biden's directive to review the decades-old policy of listing marijuana as a Schedule I drug. He said, I think you're going to find that we're going to move as quickly as we can, but at the end of the day, science is going to take us to a solution. The directive to review cannabis status was part of Biden's announcement on marijuana reform released on Thursday, which includes calling on the Department of Justice to develop a process to pardon potentially thousands of people who have federal convictions for marijuana possession. Becerra said that the review of marijuana's federal scheduling status will be tasked to the Food and Drug Administration, and that he has already spoken with FDA Commissioner Robert Califf about starting that process. He said the president was very clear. He wants this done as quickly as possible. It's not new science, but there's a lot of information to gather because in many states, marijuana has been legalized for either medical purposes or recreational purposes. I am hopeful that Xavier Becerra will be a good leader of the HHS in doing this. He has been a friend to cannabis in the past. He has done well for them and criticized, good old Jeff Sessions that y'all love when it came to the dismantling of the Cole memo. So I do believe that he is going to do his best for cannabis. And I look forward to him expeditiously doing this, although I don't believe it will happen expeditiously before the end of Biden's term. Now, just because I love Jason Beck and he doesn't seem to have his facts very much in order, I decided to do a little research during Nicole's story and wanted to give everyone a breakdown on how governors are responding to Biden's pardon message. And I'm going to keep it simple and run through them very quickly on whether or not they are going to pardon people. Alabama, no. Arkansas, no. California, no comment. Colorado said he's already done some pardons. Connecticut says we have expungements. Florida, no comment. Hawaii, we're looking into it. Idaho, no. Illinois, already doing expungements and pardons. Indiana, no comment. Kansas, no. Kentucky, no. Louisiana, no. Maryland, no. Massachusetts, we're already doing some stuff. Michigan, no. Minnesota, no. Missouri, no. Montana, no. Nebraska, no. Nevada, already doing some pardoning. And when I say they're already doing some pardoning, they're doing it on an individual basis. New Hampshire, no. New Mexico, no. North Carolina, who Jason said is reviewing it, that's a big old no. Ohio, no. Pennsylvania, no. Rhode Island, no. Tennessee,
Yes.
no. Texas, no. Utah, no. Virginia, no comment. And Wisconsin, no. So the likelihood of getting a mass pardon done anywhere, I would say your best hope is Hawaii, but in short, no one is doing it. This is Gretchen for High at 9 News.
I know. According to my article, Gretchen, your best hope is North Carolina, along with California, as you said, is undetermined.
Gretchen woke up this morning and chose violence.
She's on one. Yeah, get it, Gretchen.
It's not happening.
Thank you, Gretchen, for that. That was amazing.
I will say this can be a very slippery slope, because if the FDA chooses to reschedule, it is going to have dire consequences for the industry. We have to have descheduling or bust.
Yes. What do we make of the
I don't think it's going to get descheduled anytime soon.
I don't think it is either.
It's packed with bureaucrats, and the pharmaceutical industry has undue influence over the FDA, much like our entire government. And I just don't see it happening at all. I mean, they may move it down to Schedule 2, but that's what I see for the next couple of years.
That will be dire consequences for the cannabis industry.
Question for you: what schedule does a drug have to be to not require a prescription? Is that a Schedule 3?
No.
I don't think any scheduled drugs.
It's called removed. It's removed. It's descheduled. It's called a nutraceutical.
Yeah.
It's a nutraceutical, Gretchen.
But opioids
we need to deschedule it, and we need to get it.
No, opioids, and they have to triplicate form prescription.
Is there drugs that fall onto a lower schedule that don't? Maybe I'm not understanding.
No, if it's scheduled, it's either prescription or you can't use it. The end.
Yeah,
it's one or the other. If it's on a schedule, so like if you descheduled it and brought it out, like aspirin is descheduled, right? Like you can sell aspirin over the counter as an over the counter medication. Alcohol is not scheduled. ATF regulates that. Like an alcohol, that I always look at alcohol, and I think real life, that's probably one of our best bets is the alcohol, tobacco, firearms world taking us and accepting us.
Yes.
So Nicole, would you rather the industry be regulated by the ATF?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
I
think that's one of our better chances to deschedule, because the ATF would want that.
TTB.
Dr. Felicia, would you prefer that the ATF be in charge?
I guess if I had to pick between it being scheduled or descheduled, if that's the price I had to pay to the devil, then I would say yes to the ATF.
That is, you know what I mean?
That
when
is,
I look at it,
that is the
when
price.
I look at it, it's like voting for fucking president. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, what's the path of least resistance that's going to give people the most access, right? And the ATF would push hard. They've got fucking money and they want it. Like they are willing to take it. And like that thought, like
support the States Reform Act
versus giving it to the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, and fucking pharmaceuticals company. ATF over FDA all day, bro. All fucking day. Give me guns over pills every day. Every day.
Support the States Reform Act. That's all I have to say.
Sometimes I'm happier to have a pill than a gun.
What's that, Rico?
What do you guys make of that when a state said no comment? What do you think that really means?
A state says no comment. It means that they're pausing. They're politically posturing to see if they can get any political advantage by coming and moving forward.
It means Gavin needs to talk to people to decide if it's going to be helpful if he says anything or not.
Exactly. It means internal polling done.
It means that state's governor needs to be recalled.
And in defense of some of these governors, which they need a lot of defending, many of their said no based on that they can't do a mass pardon. That's not something that
because their constitution doesn't allow for that. You're saying, right. Gretchen?
Yeah.
Because they're too lazy to fucking go through. They're too lazy to go through the process.
That list just showed you how big of scumbags politicians are.
Burn it down.
No, don't burn it down. No, you guys are crazy anarchists. No,
to the ground,
do that. But nonetheless, we got to keep it moving. One visit to this office is sure to get you access to all kinds of blue pills. All shapes, sizes, and colors are always included and welcome in this safe space. She's the Plants for Life CEO and a dual board certified physician, always promoting cannabis as medicine. And if you play your cards right, she will mix some yellow ones with your blue ones to make a greener experience. Coming up next is none other than Dr. Felicia Dawson.
Thank you so much, Jason, for that introduction, and happy Indigenous Peoples Day, everyone. My headline comes from New York Post. Hochul hunts for marijuana DWI test as New York opens cannabis shops, by Carl Campanile. New York is putting the doobie before traffic safety. Law enforcement officials charge, and it's forcing Albany to give the issue high priority. Governor Kathy Hochul's administration is scrambling to develop a way to measure when motorists are driving while under the influence of cannabis, since there's no current standard or valid testing, the Post has learned. The move comes ahead of the expected issuance of up to 175 retail licenses to sell marijuana in the coming weeks, jacking up pot access and usage that could potentially put more weed-whack motorists on the road. With the legalization of adult use cannabis, there are concerns of increased incidences of driving while impaired after cannabis use, the State Department of Health said in a proposal seeking solutions to detect motorists driving high on pot. Identifying drivers impaired by cannabis use is of critical importance. However, unlike alcohol, there are currently no evidence-based methods to detect cannabis impaired driving, health officials said in the pitch to potential bidders. The DOH is looking for the latest academic research related to cannabis testing, like blood, saliva, or breath, and if pot intoxication can be linked to motor vehicle crashes. A recent study conducted by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety found in states with legal marijuana, the rate of car crashes with injuries spiked by nearly 6%, and fatal crashes jumped by 4%. The analysis compared 5 states with legal pot for those over 21, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, California, and Nevada, with states without legal marijuana, Arizona, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming. There were no increases in crashes in the states without legal marijuana, the researchers said. Our latest research makes it clear that legalizing marijuana for recreational use does increase overall crash rates, said the Institute for Highway Safety President David Harkey. A separate survey found a third of drivers who drink alcohol and use marijuana at the same time report getting behind the wheel of a car within 2 hours of consumption. A worrisome finding, since there's evidence that alcohol and pot combo worsens driving performance more than either substance by itself, he added. New York law enforcement groups oppose legal marijuana in large part because of the hurdles in proving drugged driving. The Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act was approved by ex-Governor Andrew Cuomo and the legislature in March 2021, while Hochul was lieutenant governor. When she took over as governor, Hochul moved to accelerate the process to regulate and sell cannabis in New York after pro-pot advocates accused Cuomo of slow-walking implementation of the law. Cannabis remains in the person's system longer than alcohol, making it harder to link usage to driving while under the influence, officials said, and there's no test like an alcohol breathalyzer to prove intoxication. The cannabis law required DOH to issue a proposal to investigate ways to validly test for pot intoxication. This is reckless. We need to solve the DWI problems before we legalize cannabis, said Patrick Phelan, a executive director of the New York State Association of Chiefs of Police. The New York State District Attorneys Association also slammed the policy makers for putting marijuana legalization ahead of public safety. So I'm going to jump a little ahead. The article goes on to state how the legislation was written so that some of the taxes will go to train more state and local police on how to evaluate drivers intoxicated from cannabis and other drugs. They've also launched an ad campaign with "Don't Drive High," warning to pot smoke users, and they are training more officers to be drug recognition experts. Finally, a DOH spokesman added that officers are well trained to detect motorists impaired by marijuana and other drugs, and the new proposal is aimed at finding if there are other methods and technologies in development that will create even more tools akin to the breathalyzer's use of alcohol field sobriety tests that can end this important work. I so appreciate that they mention a few times in this article that there are no evidence-based methods to detect cannabis impairment. We can only detect recent use. I agree with public service announcements to begin educating people about driving under the influence of cannabis and more. We've received another driving while under influence study. We reviewed a driving under the influence study earlier this year, and using brain scans, and compared that device to acute intoxication of the subjects. And the drug recognition experts were only correct 65 to 68% of the time. Given this low level of accuracy, I recommend that every encounter of driving with under the influence be videotaped so that a judge and jury can look at it later. So what do you all think about New York? Should they have decrim first before they put adult use on the market, or what are your thoughts? This is Dr. Felicia Dawson reporting for the High at 9 News.
Oh, Chris has his hand up. Chris, former law enforcement. What do you have to say about this? Because I know what I have to say.
Okay, for a couple of things I'd like to say, please. One, my father was hit by a drunk driver. My earliest memories of my dad, that as I remember as a kid, was him crawling as a result of that because he couldn't walk. So I'm against drunk driving. I'm against impaired driving. Everyone should get where they need to go safely. Having said that, I'm against erroneous arrests for impaired driving. And I know law enforcement is just not really good at DUI investigations. I achieved this right before, I'd say, my last year. And I think it's valid for 2 years. So I think technically I still might be by the state qualified as a DRE. In California, the stat that they gave us at the time was less than 2% of officers in California have completed the DRE training. So when I started getting called out to investigations, I saw that officers were just like really, really bad at DUI investigations. SFSTs, standard field sobriety tests. The most important one of all those words is the first S, standard. It must be done the same. And so, the follow my finger tests, the walk the line tests, those all need to be done the same every single time. And that's where a lot of officers fail. And so, 65 to 68%, if I wrote that down correctly, is not good enough. So I'm against impaired driving. I think everyone should get where they want to go safely. We all have families and loved ones on the road. But I'm also against erroneous arrests. And I think that still, I know it still happens. So I'm against that. So I'm kind of throwing a lot at you guys, but that's just my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Thank you for that feedback, Chris.
Yeah, I feel like this is just a ploy by the governor to be able to arrest people for weed after they just said that they're not going to arrest anybody for weed.
And just because you consume cannabis doesn't mean that you're impaired, in my opinion. Because
exactly, that's my whole point. The science is not there.
Who consumes medically, and he is just a better driver.
I believe when it comes to this, they have to act reactively instead of trying to act proactively until the technology is there for them to be able to act proactively.
And we need to control the technology and how officers use the technology, and it needs to be super transparent, and we need to be able to audit that.
How does a DUI work with a pharmaceutical, Chris? Like if you pulled me over and you did a blood test or a breathalyzer and I'm not drunk and you're like, this person's obviously impaired. How does that work if it was a pharmaceutical? Like what's the next step where you're like, I have to do something, but this person, they passed the breathalyzer, but they are impaired. What is the next step? Do I go get a blood test? And if it's my pharmaceutical, what is that? Where do I stand on that?
Sure. So I'll just speak to California because I can't speak for other states. So in California, one, you are not required to do SFSTs. That is voluntary. In California, you are also not required to do the breath test roadside. If what the law says is if you're arrested for a DUI in California, you made a deal with the DMV, not law enforcement, that if you're arrested for a DUI, you shall submit to blood, breath, or urine if you're arrested. But you need to put on the cops to arrest you. But in your scenario, Nicole, let's say you volunteered to do the roadside.
Yep. And I'm like, I'm not drunk, Chris.
And you're 0 across the board. What should happen next? Not saying it's going to, but what should happen next is a DRE should be called to the scene, and then additional testing can be done. However, I asked this in the DRE class and I never got an answer. And this was taught by the CHP. I asked, hey, I have a question. What case law supports me prolonging this detention to further my investigation, right? What case law exists that says I can prolong that detention for this investigation? Because there's a lot of case law that says you cannot prolong detentions for various reasons, as we all know. and they never gave an answer. So I don't even know if it's been, like contemplated that to that extent, but
There's
a
not even an
DRE
answer
should be
for
called
it.
to the scene. Because here's the thing, if it's me today, and I know the law and I know law enforcement operations better than most, one, I'm not complying to SFSTs, right? I'm not complying to the breath test. I'm going to say nothing. I'm going to say nothing. First of all, I'm going to
You're gonna shut the
You're gonna
fuck
shut the
up.
fuck
I'm
up.
gonna shut the
Yeah.
fuck up, right? So, but having said that, if they said, well, we want to take you to the hospital for extra testing, based on what crime? And can you do that? I mean, I'm not gonna fight myself, but I'm gonna document and call my attorney. But is there a case law that supports you can prolong this detention?
Chris, I think the best piece of advice I've gotten in my adult life was one of my white teammates. He had back in college, he had a lawyer dad. He told us like straight up, he said, just shut up and spend the night in jail. Contact a lawyer, shut up, spend the night in jail. Do not consent to any types of tests. No breathalyzer.
And having said that,
test,
again,
nothing.
I'm not supporting impaired driving. I think we got Uber,
And Chris,
taxi.
to your point, sorry, Gretchen. Chris, to your point, I covered this topic somewhat about drunk driving in Nevada, and in Nevada, you have to get the blood sample within 2 hours of the initial arrest in order for it to stick in court. But please, Gretchen, go ahead.
I just have a quick question. Chris, I was told, this is a while ago, that the DWI data is not very reliable when it comes to cannabis or alcohol, because if you pull over someone who is impaired, it's much easier for the cops to say, all right, it's alcohol. And then the testing doesn't really ever happen for the cannabis, or it's too expensive to do a testing to find out, do a blood test for cannabis. And so the numbers just aren't there. So how are municipalities or anyone supposed to move forward if the data sucks because cops aren't doing different tests because of the cost of things?
I go back to the S part, right? Everything. I think it should be standard. And I also question law enforcement statistics. I mean, that they can be skewed in so many different ways. I'm not saying that it's always skewed to be shady and stuff like that, but I just don't trust the data. And
But
in
it's
the
always
field,
skewed to be shady.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. But like,
What happens when you skew shit? It turns out shady.
So I saw in the field how this really happens, right? So the standard of the SFST. So for example, follow my finger, right? That should be done 11 to 15 inches away from the face. So if this is 8 by 11, it should be done here. Now and I am a private investigator, and early on before, like right after leaving law enforcement,
Would that make you a dick?
Cases, and if the finger's too close or too far away, the argument is that's not a standard test. I don't know what that is. And so, law enforcement's getting it wrong in the field. And that's why body cameras are so important. And there was a comment, I'm sorry, I forget who said it, but that we need to have documentation at jury trials, so a judge and a jury can see the stuff. I totally agree.
I have a serious question for you, Chris, because I had a highway patrol officer pull me over one time and tell me that I had been smoking weed, and that when I stuck my tongue out, my tongue was green, and that's how he knew I had been smoking weed, because I never admit to anything. So do they teach you that in the training? Do they actually tell you that if their tongue is green, they smoked weed?
Yes, that's what they're.
Get the fuck out of here! Are you serious? They really teach them that?
Hey, I think next Monday.
That's why cops are so dumb. They teach them dumb shit like that.
I have a lot of the paperwork, if not all of it, that they gave us in the DRE course. So I'll show you the matrix of all the different types of drugs. And Dr. Felicia, I'd love to send that to you as well, just to get your.
Oh, I'm so glad you stepped outside of the matrix, Chris.
Yes.
Oh, I save everything, man.
Oh my god.
But yeah,
All right.
green tongue, Jason, green tongue. Ooh, we got you, buddy.
Yes.
Green tongue.
Yes. All I did was start laughing at him at that point. I was like, "You have got to be kidding me. There's no way that my tongue is green."
We're running out of time here. Let's keep it.
Yeah.
Keep it rolling. Green tongue industries.
Chris, can you surmise your story just because we are a little short on time? Rico will introduce you, but we're short.
Yeah, this is a rocket. Our next correspondent is a fellow dope dad who decided to trade in his issue gun and badge for a blunt and a notepad. When not on stage with us reading the weed news, this former cop's a security consultant at CC Security Solutions, dedicated to each day improving your chances of survivability rather than waiting on safe banking to pass, as some others believe is a more effective solution. Chris Eggers, what do you got for us today?
Love you guys. My article today comes from San Diego. Ex-county official to plead guilty to cannabis bribe scheme. So out of San Bernardino, California, it says a former Southern California official will admit to funneling bribes through his company to a city councilman in exchange for the councilman's votes and influence to city cannabis permitting process, federal prosecutors say. So Gabriel Chavez is a former San Bernardino County Planning Commissioner and agreed to plead guilty to one federal count of bribery. The politician who solicited the bribes is a former Baldwin Park City Council member, Ricardo Pacheco, pled guilty in June 2021 to the federal bribery charge. Pacheco resigned last year and he's awaiting sentencing. After Baldwin Park began permitting legal cannabis shops in 2017, Pacheco began to solicit bribes for marijuana businesses seeking city permits. The pair agreed that Pacheco would get 60% of the company's bribes and Chavez would keep the rest as payment primarily for facilitating the bribes. Chavez is expected to enter a guilty plea in the coming weeks. A federal bribery charge typically calls for a maximum sentence of 10 to 5 years and federal time is 85%, just FYI. So I'll be really quick. I know we're short on time. My name is Chris Eggers. Thanks for having me.
San Bernardino show. First
Cannabis bribes.
Dude, San Bernardino is a shit show, and the idea that the fucking San Bernardino and Adelanto were the first ones to get popped for bribes is fucking hilarious because that's like the most garbage ass places to be in California.
And
so
it's
imagine
all San
like
Bernardino
the nice
County,
places.
right?
What?
It's all San Bernardino County too, isn't it?
Adelanto still San Bernardino County?
San Bernardino County.
Yeah, Adelanto.
Yeah, it's
is
all
San
the same
Bernardino
county, bro. It's all the same county.
And you wonder why all the cannabis events are there.
Bro.
Oh.
That shit is fucking crazy. But yeah, not surprised, but I do think that we're going to see more and more of this. And whenever you see corruption in a government like that, it's like just like a domino effect usually, because like you can't operate as a independent, corrupt politician. You know what I mean? Like you got to have like a gang, you got a squad of people helping you.
By yourself, right?
You can't do it by yourself. Exactly. So like there will be more. There will be blood. There will be blood.
Heads will roll.
Oh boy.
Well, what a great show, guys. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Perfect timing. Thank you for landing that plane for us today, Chris. And everyone for getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters, to the haters for still talking about us, to True Classic, Weavers, and LAXCC for helping us keep the lights on. And thank you to the correspondents for being absolutely amazing. And to Cannabis for giving us a reason to do this. And thank you to 3 is 4 and everyone on the back end helping us create this space in the cannabis miniverse. Thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us.
You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.